Hello everyone, my name's Emma, and in today's video I'm going to explain how every single Pixar movie is connected by the Pixar Theory. So basically, if you are unfamiliar with what the Pixar Theory is, it is the idea that every single Pixar movie takes place on a giant timeline in the same universe. Basically, one big huge story told by every single Pixar movie from Toy Story all the way until Onward, which is the newest Pixar movie out at this moment. I did not come up with this Pixar Theory. A man named John McGroney came up with the Pixar Theory. He wrote a book about it. He is the one that first introduced this actual theory into the world, and now I'm making a video about it for all of you. So these movies are not in chronological order, like how they came out. I'm basically putting them in the order that makes sense in the Pixar Theory. So Toy Story is not first. We're actually starting with The Good Dinosaur, which makes perfect sense because the whole idea behind The Good Dinosaur is that the meteor didn't hit Earth and take out the dinosaurs. They ended up living on and continuing their life, and how Arlo has to overcome all these struggles, overcome the guilt that he's feeling about the death of his father, and eventually the dinosaurs' fate catches up with them. That was like the main rise of the animals in the Pixar Theory. All the life is basically wiped out. The Earth is going through a lot of struggles, as you can see during the movie. There's examples of how the pterodactyls are now following the storm to know where they are and get food and everything, and the pet collector is a dinosaur that usually travels in herds, but now he's all alone and terrified. You can even see that the first humans shown in The Good Dinosaur are getting way more intelligent than Arlo and like all the dinosaurs could ever be. They're doing a better job at surviving during that period of time on Earth. Animals are gaining their intelligence by where they live, but they can also gain the intelligence from what they learn in life. There's the three main groups in the Pixar Theory. There's the animals, the humans, and the machines. Basically, The Good Dinosaur shows the main rise of the animals in the Pixar world. And so now, centuries later, their fate is catching up with them, and we're moving on to the next movie, which is Brave. Brave takes a big, huge role in the Pixar Theory. The main idea of Brave is that Merida is trying to change her fate and not have to get married like all the other people before her, like her mom and everyone. And she meets the witch, and this witch, if you don't know, you're gonna have to stick around to the end to find out why this witch is the main component of this Pixar Theory. This witch also shows when magic is first introduced in the Pixar world, it goes against her and works with her. So it could have a mind of its own, but it also, we know that humans and animals are capable of intelligence. We're now going to start to see the main power struggle between the animals, the humans, and the machines in the Pixar world, and how the different groups rise and fall at different sections on the timeline. And at this point, animals are at the lowest. There's not really animals around right now. They died off with the dinosaurs. Humans at their all-time highest at this point in the Pixar timeline. So we are moving on to The Incredibles and Incredibles 2. This takes place around the 1950s to 1960s. The supers are the peak of human existence. They are top-notch, the best of the best. But Syndrome overhit the course of his life. Syndrome is trying to find a way to overcome those supers, and eventually he invents a machine that is too smart and too powerful and overcomes all the humans and even overcomes Syndrome himself because the machine is too powerful. So at this point, technology is at the all-time advancement, the best it can be, even better than the supers. Now, as we can see in the next movies, which is Finding Nemo, that the undersea life has been left alone for many, many years, like thousands of years. Ever since the dinosaurs crashed out, they've been left alone. Nobody has touched or been seeing what has been going on. The fish even developed human capabilities, like having their school underwater. Nemo's going to school, just like how humans would go to school. And basically, they're working to try to overcome the humans underwater. Like, while all these movies are happening, Nemo's trapped in the fish tank, and Marlin works against the humans and eventually can navigate himself across the whole entire ocean and finds his son, and the fish in the fish tank are working to go against the dentist and eventually get Nemo out of there, and they all eventually get out of there too, but not in a smart way. They're just left in the water. And now in the movie Ratatouille, Ratatouille, we see that Remy is the best chef in the entire world. He is working with Linguini. So animals are not always trying to work against humans. They can also work with the humans, as shown in Ratatouille. And cooking is obviously a human job. So we can see here that animals are taking and learning human capabilities, which is an example of learning and intelligence. And we can also see in the movie Up that the dogs are serving food, just like how like a waiter would. That is another example of how intelligence is being learned. And a major part of this Pixar theory is in Up. And we see that the company, by and large, is now being shown, invented, everything. B&L, which is by and large, is the best of the machines. They are the main corporation of the machine world in any Pixar movie. They are top notch. They are taking over the machines and the humans and animals and everyone. And in the movie Up, by and large, is the company that forces Carl to move out, but he obviously doesn't end up moving out. He flies his house all the way to Paradise Falls. It's also shown in WALL-E, by and large, is the whole main point of how all the humans are not in Earth anymore. They're floating in space with the by and large company. And they're also a form of batteries, like in Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear has by and large batteries. And we can see that Toy Story and Up is taking place around the same time frame, because in the little girl's room, when Carl's house is flying past, we can see that Lotso is in that room and the girl from the daycare in Toy Story. And Buzz is in a grape soda commercial, which is, if you don't know, in the movie Up, they have the grape soda pin that is really special in that movie. So now the main focus is going over to Toy Story. All the Toy Story movies, 1, 2, 3, and 4, batteries are required for energy in the Pixar world. For toys and machines to be able to be alive and operate, batteries are needed, or some form of charging anything. Okay, so the movie Onward takes place at the same exact time as Toy Story in the timeline, because I believe that the theory is Andy and his friends are playing Dungeons and Dragons in his bedroom or something, because if you didn't know, the whole movie Onward is just basically based off the Dungeons and Dragons board game. That's why all the mystical, magical creatures, and basically you're just seeing Andy's imagination of the whole entire board game. Because when have you ever seen Andy's father? You don't. You've never seen Andy's father. He could be his character in his Dungeons and Dragons game, imagining what it would be like to see his father for one last day. Because you never see his father in any of the Pixar movies. You don't know if he's dead. You don't know if he's alive somewhere or not. So I believe that Onward is just taking place at the same time as Toy Story, and it's Andy's imagination of him playing a game with his friends. And as all these machines are getting greater and greater, there's just so much more pollution happening in the human world. Now that in Finding Dory, we can see that there's trash all over the ocean, pollution. It's just basically taking up the ocean. More animals are dying because of all the machines taking over. And now it's the humans' downfall, because the technology got too great that the humans are now downfalling because they can't live in their own pollution. And the machines are just at their greatest. They are getting better and better. And now that leads us to WALL-E, where it by and large became so powerful. Earth is polluted and all the humans had to move for many, many years, like thousands of years. Humans have been moved out of Earth, and Earth has been left alone with pollution everywhere. And basically all that's left is robots and machines, like how WALL-E is left trying to find one source of plant life or any living thing, and the Eve drones are going around Earth in the very polluted areas. And now that the humans are gone and all that's left is the machines, leftover pollution, everything, we get into Cars 1, 2, and 3. And Cars takes place on Earth. You can see that in the Cars movies, they go to real world places. We know that by and large's goal is to control the humans and treat them the best they can, so they won't want to go back to Earth and they would want to stay in space. There's a theory that cars are taking their personalities from their past human owners. And like how in toys, like in Toy Story, they get their personality because their human assigns them their own personality. So now in Cars, we have all of the machines that are talking. They have their personality from their humans. We have cars all around Earth. Humans are up in space doing their own thing with by and large company. And there's not really much sign of animals anymore. They've died out at this point. Machines are everywhere. But there is a sign of animal life in Cars, because she says, "I didn't want to hit a crab."
I didn't want to hit a crab.
You gotta be kidding me.
So this shows that there's other animals in the car world, or at least some other animals in the car world. We know that they could have lived to this point because before the cars got there, in Finding Dory, we see that there's crabs in the pollution that are still living and they never died out. They're thriving underwater, even with all the pollution. So they made it past the animal downfall into the point of where cars are now living on Earth. And now, eventually, the cars will die out because the humans aren't there, and without humans, there can't be machines because humans are the ones that invented machines in the first place. And we even see that there's an energy crisis in Cars 2. So we know that Wall-E eventually delivers the plant, and all the humans are sent back down home to Earth where they can start their lives again and rebuild Earth after all the pollution. Now, you have to stick with me here. The monsters are actually the humans. The humans evolved into monsters over this time. But we know that humans are capable of doing this because we see that Jack Jack turns into a monster on command. So this can either happen by choice and everyone just eventually evolves into the monsters. And we know that in Brave, the witch had the capability to turn Merida's mom into a bear. So there's magic and all these evolution things that could happen. So now we're in Monsters Inc. The monsters are suffering an energy crisis. There's not enough screams to power the world of Monstropolis. Monstropolis runs off human energy. We soon learn that at the end of Monsters Inc., laughter is better than screams. Laughter is taking over and it's way more powerful. The energy crisis is basically solved because they have way more energy from laughter than they did before with screams. The scare floor actually is just time traveling. The scare floor, when you go through the door, it's basically just like a portal. That's why scaring is at its all-time high, because we can see that Sully and Randall are both competing against each other the best they can be, but they're at their highest, but the energy is completely low because of this time travel. And we know that the human world is the monster world. It's not two separate worlds. They are living in the same world because the humans eventually evolve into the monsters. So basically, when the monsters go through those doors, they're just going back into history when the humans were still alive. And the time period they go back into is around the 50s or 60s, because we can see that in Boo's room, she has a Jessie doll, and Toy Story was taking place right after The Incredibles in the 50s and 60s, and there's a lot of fear because of the crime levels going on in The Incredibles. In The Incredibles, all the machines are taking over, everyone's fearful, and that's why everyone in the human world is fearing, and that's how the monsters are getting their energy, from the extreme fear. So basically, when time moves forward in the monster world, it's still moving forward at the same rate in the human world, just at different periods of time. They're time traveling parallel to each other. So when time in the human world is moving forward, there's more memories available for the monsters to use to power their life in Monstropolis. And now we move to Inside Out, where we find that joy is the dominant memory, and that's how in Monsters Inc. they got way more energy from the people, the kids and the adults laughing. It just gives off way more energy than they ever did from fear. And we see that in Inside Out, the majority of Riley's memories are powered from joy. And whatever color that memory is determines the emotion of that specific memory. And that's why kids are the better target for monsters, because they give off mostly one memory. And as kids get older, we mix memories, so we can see in Inside Out that Riley's memories are now turning from just joy to joy and a little bit of sadness mixed together. So when they're kids, they get one basic emotion, which would be joy from laughing. That's how Monstropolis is powered at its highest. And now we see that memory is the main message of the Pixar theory. And the next movie on the timeline is Coco, and memory is a big, huge factor in the movie Coco, because if you don't know, the land of the dead is just a bunch of collective memory of everyone in Mexico. And if you're remembered and you're put on the ofrenda, hopefully I'm saying that right, you're put your picture on there, then you're able to cross over into the human world on the Day of the Dead. And if one memory exists of you somewhere, no matter where it is, anywhere in this world, from any given person, anybody, if one memory is left of you anywhere, you are able to cross over into the human world. So the main point is that if you actively remember those who came before you, those forgotten they're never really gone, because if they're never forgotten, they're never gone. They will live forever, just like how in Coco you see that if you're never forgotten, you're just living in the land of the dead for the rest of your life, and you don't have to suffer that final death. Because that final death is when you're really forgotten by anyone in the human world. There's no trace of memory left of you. You have to suffer that final death. They always keep the memory alive. So now we go back to Toy Story, which was the first Pixar movie. We see that Wheezy is sick because Andy is not playing with him. He feels that Andy is forgetting about him, so he's getting really sick. In The Incredibles, Bob is fearing that if he's not fighting as Mr. Incredible any longer, then people are just going to see him as his normal self, and Mr. Incredible will be forgotten and no one's going to care about him anymore. In Ratatouille, Gusteau's legacy and everything is getting diminished, and Remy is trying to keep his legacy moving forward, and his memories and all of his food, he wants to continue what he left behind because he died. In Up, Carl can't let Ellie's memory die. He tries everything he can. He's trying to take her with him to go to Paradise Falls. He wants it to be like she's really there. He eventually realizes that Ellie would want him to live the way she would. In Finding Dory, Dory's whole entire character is based off the fact that she can't remember. She has short-term memory loss, and you see how hard it is for her to remember and the struggle of what it would be like if you forgot someone. She could be with someone that she knew, just like Marlon, and not even remember who he is because of her memory loss. And in Wall-E, Wall-E is the one robot that really cares about trying to remember the humans and what they were like and everything, and he eventually brings them back. And also in Onward, Ian is trying to see what it would be like to spend one last day with his father. He wants to know what it would be like, and Barley is trying to have his memories passed down to Ian so he will know. So he can experience what it would be like with a day with his dad, because they don't want his dad's life to be forgotten. And now we move to Brave, and the witch, and if you didn't know already, is Boo. This can be confirmed in many different ways. She has a full carving of Sully in her home, basically. No one else would know who Sully was in Scotland thousands and thousands of years before Monsters, Inc. took place. So, the theory is that Boo time travels through the doors. She spends her whole entire life trying to figure out where Sully came from because she barely has any memories of him in the first place. She is trying to travel through the doors, and eventually she stays in Scotland. She stays there for the rest of her life because she does not want to let Sully's memory ever fade away, because then Sully will be gone. She wants Sully's life to live on forever. Boo eventually time traveled all the way to the past in Scotland because if she never forgets Sully, Sully can still live in the future. And that is it of all my notes. That concludes the Pixar theory. The theory that every single Pixar movie made is connected all in one giant timeline in the same universe. Hopefully you guys like this video and want to see more theory videos like this, because I really love these videos. I like them more than just like normal Disney videos. I like to talk about this kind of things. Leave it down in the comments if you want to see me do more videos like this. And also like this video to let me know if you liked it or not, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one in the future. Thank you for watching. Bye.